and welcome to 9 to 42, the podcast from the team at the Guitar Show UK. Join us for interviews, updates and chat with artists, influencers and those that manufacture the gear that we love. Hello and welcome to 9 to 42, the podcast brought to you by the guys from the Guitar Show UK. I am with my good friend Jason Hunt. Jace, how are you?
I'm all right, Ant. How are you?
I'm really well, really well. Have you had a good lockdown week?
Yes, I have. What have I done? I've been doing a lot of marking. It's always one of the most interesting times of the year when you're a lecturer. When you read some essays and you're like, oh my God, they listened to everything I said. And then you read other essays and you go, oh my God, they listened to nothing that I said.
I don't know if I'd want to ever find out if people listened or don't listen to anything I said, so I don't have that moment to face on an annual basis.
It's an interesting time. Also, I do wonder how, with spell check built into Word, you can produce essays with spelling mistakes in is beyond me.
Yeah, grammatical error you can live with, can't you? But spelling error should have been a thing in the...
Yeah, I was reading one yesterday that said, it got little things like I, but it was a lowercase I. And you're like, but Word changes it automatically. Yeah. You've gone back and deliberately changed that.
Change it to... Right on. One thing I must point out, if you're listening to this and you think it sounds slightly different, that's because it does sound slightly different. And it's not because we've changed anything. We're the same people. I know we're a week older, but we're the same people. Environments haven't changed. But we are... I made the decision. I was listening to a podcast which had people pan to the left and right so that you got something. So instead of the fact we're not coming in your ears, Jason's coming in your
left.
Jason's coming left ear, and I'm coming in your right ear. In a hope that when we do the interviews with a third person, that it makes it easier to gauge everything, because the interviewee will be straight down the centre and we'll be slightly left and right. And I picked left
because Malcolm Young's always on the left, and I like to think of myself as like a solid rhythm player that's just holding it all down.
So there you have it, folks. That's the reason why Jason is coming slightly left of centre in your ears as you listen to this. It's funny though, we didn't ask how the Stones split.
No. Well, it's the ancient art of weaving, isn't it? They're all over the place.
Well, they are. They didn't, but they weren't in the Mick Taylor years. They weren't. They were definite left and right, weren't they?
I mean, do you want me to Google it now?
Well, you can do if you. I'm just wondering who I've ended up as. I know I'm Angus. Which has come as a shock to everybody, actually. But am I Mick or am I Keith?
Hang on a minute. Let's see what the wonderful word of Google.
And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it isn't that they did it that way around. But I thought it was fairly through that period. It was fairly not automated, but it was fairly structured.
I'm going to have to come back to you because I've just read a recent interview where he said we weren't panned, but that was on the Blue and Lonesome album.
Right. Okay. Keith's not going to remember. There's no point asking Keith about what happened in 1968.
No.
He's not, or 71. There's not a hope. Bless him. But, right, okay. So Jason's slightly distracted as you've realised neither of us can multitask. So I'll carry on.
Bloody great screen in front of me as well.
I'll carry on gabbing while he's looking for this. So this week we are talking to Irwin Sparkes, who is the guitarist and singer, and essentially he is the Hoosiers, isn't he?
Yeah, it's him and the drummer, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're mates from school.
Yes. So we had a long chat with Irwin. How do you know Irwin? How did that all come about?
I don't really know Irwin at all, or didn't until we had a chat with him. But one of my fellow tutors at BIM, Eric, he looks after their digital marketing. I think that's what he does. I mean, Eric's amazing. He works with so many incredible artists. Looks after James Blunt as well. Grace Jones. He's done a lot of work with Elton John. I had
Bloody hell, that's a dinner party.
Yeah, I had to observe one of Eric's classes last year as part of the sort of like, ensuring that the tutors are delivering work of an appropriate standard. And I sat at the back of Eric's class, sort of behind the students, so I could see what the students were doing as well, which was mainly scrolling through social media. Whilst I was utterly wrapped with the information he was giving out, and I was like, "This is absolute gold. Why are they not listening?" I mean, it was brilliant. He's brilliant at what he does, and he very kindly sorted out this interview. And now I'm badgering him for James Blunt because I think that would be fascinating.
Well, to be fair, it would. But now I've found out about Grace Jones and Elton John, then I'd quite, Grace Jones. That'd scare me, I think.
Yeah, he doesn't work with Elton anymore.
Right.
But I'm not entirely sure I'd want to interview Elton John. I think it's probably just left, at arm's length. I got a feeling he might annoy me.
Okay, there you have it. Don't tell Elton. So, we had a great chat with Irwin, as you'll hear. We'll dive straight into that. We'll not give it any sort of preamble, and then we can have a little chat at the end.
All right, see you in a bit.
It's another lockdown recording, so I'm staring at people on the screen. My good friend Jace is there. Hi, Jace. How are you?
Hi, Ant. I'm fine, thanks. How are you, mate?
I'm really, really well. And we have Irwin Sparkes from the Hoosiers with us. Hi, Irwin. How's things with you?
Yeah, not bad. Thanks very much. Yeah.
I feel I should start by asking you the lockdown question of what you've been up to. But before I do that, I'm just going to have to say, Irwin Sparkes is the most incredible name I think I've ever come across. Is that your name, or is that a?
Yeah, it is. It is. You were
christened that?
I am. Yep, I am indeed. And I always wished. I never liked it as a kid. I always wished I was called Peter.
Oh, okay.
Because I was a big fan of Spider-Man. I wished I was Spider-Man. I wanted to be Peter Parker. Didn't happen. Better than, it's more suitable than actually being called Spider, I guess, which would be Spider-Man's first name, I'm presuming.
Yeah, the problem with being a Peter is with great Peter comes great responsibility, and that's the downside.
I've always said that, Anthony.
Have you?
Yeah. Been one of my sayings, one of my things, actually.
Has it?
My go-tos.
Is it one of your go-tos? All right, okay, fine. Please, I stumbled on that then. Anyway, so how's your lockdown been so far?
Well, thanks for asking the obligatory kindness. It's a funny old one, isn't it? And I suppose everyone said that, but I feel I've never been busier, and I can imagine I've got, even from a few pals I speak to, everyone's having very different lockdowns. In it together, I don't think so. I'm not buying that line for a start, but my particular one is very busy because I'm full-time childcare at the moment, and my wife has gone back to work from the bedroom, and that made her sound like a prostitute. I'd like to retract that. Simply, she has a...
No, I've got the same thing going on. My wife is working from the bedroom as well, and I'm doing full-time childcare, and my wife, honestly, is the furthest thing from a prostitute. Much at times to my disappointment. But so anyway, back to your wife.
Thanks very much. Yeah, so there she is, working away, and I got my hands full for the day with a baby, and then the couple of naps I'm trying to squeeze in, the last minute bits of work that I can ahead of my debut album, which is a solo album, which is coming out on Friday the 29th of May. Didn't that teed up nicely?
I tell you what, that was brilliant. You because this is obviously a 45 minute podcast, and you thought it was a 30-second radio clip, so you've got it in right at the beginning, haven't you?
It's just in case you kind of, we don't get to it, I figured, get that one in nicely, nice and early.
So, Irwin, tell us about your debut album.
Well, okay, since you ask, it's called Whitetail Falls is the name of the project, and it's the most personal. That's the kind of seems trite, but it's just true, and it's an album written, I think, after a time of being feeling in my mid-30s. I think a lot of people can relate to that, where you kind of wake up and wonder, how did you get here to this place? You didn't really see your life taking you to this place, and it's that Talking Heads line, like, this, whose life is this? This is not my house, it's not my beautiful wife. It just felt like I didn't, you maybe weren't autonomous in your own decisions, and you didn't really understand why you'd ended up where you had, and there was some mental turbulence and I as far as music as well, I wasn't sure that I wanted to carry on. I was doing a lot of co-writing, and that was sort of sucking a bit of life out of the joy of music. And then this album was sort of a return to trying to find the joy as to why I bothered to pick up a guitar in the first place when I was a pup. And in doing so, it's really, being able to kind of, I think in terms of songwriting as well, it's the whole, when I was young, I'd write songs because I didn't know really how I felt. And writing the song, by the process of doing that, I'd have a better idea of where I was at after the song. And there was like a lot of freedom and a lot of catharsis in doing that. And that got a bit lost as well. Maybe as well, which is perhaps understandable when music becomes a business and you're looking to try and make a few shekels from it.
Well, it's funny because I can really, really appreciate where you are with that, because I started a podcast earlier on the year, which is just me talking into a microphone, and it was exactly the same thing, a cathartic experience to allow me to reconnect with what I was thinking, because I was finding after I stopped working on a full-time role in August, and I was having odd weeks where I was really struggling a little bit, and there was lots of stuff bouncing around in my head I couldn't really make sense of, and actually talking about it really, really helped, and it became the easiest thing in the world to set a microphone up and just speak into a mic, and through that found myself saying things when they came out, and I was like, well, that's crystallized into something, and I didn't know I was even going to say that. Wow. It kind of happened, and the whole process was going along with that. And I guess same sort of thing if you've reconnected with the songs in quite a personal way.
Yeah. I think it's that. That's a really interesting though. The similarity there of just, I guess it's a stream of consciousness.
Yes. Yeah.
Like just. I mean, I'd find it at points in. I had therapy for a couple of years, and there were moments in that I found it frustrating at the beginning because I wanted someone to give me answers, and the whole point that my very good counsellor pointed out is that they have to be your answers. You find your own, and that's annoying because it's harder. But after a process of just yakking away, you kind of say something and it just hits you, and it's a strange feeling. I can appreciate when you say something that surprises you, and you're like, all right, that's how I really feel about that. I didn't know. It's weird old life.
Yeah, well, I found that I was working on trying to put a website together and starting a little bit of a business idea, and I had a mental block about starting it. And I realised when I was talking one day on the podcast that I was just scared. I was actually, this thing I'd been saying saying to people, when you're in full-time work, you'll say to people, well, I can do this and I can do that, and if I ever had the opportunity, I'd love to do this because I'm sure I've got the skills. And then when you've got the opportunity, you realise actually you're really scared that it's that all those things for years you've said, no, I could do that. Maybe you can't do. Maybe when push comes to shove, you actually haven't got the ability you think you've got.
That I 100% know that. I have it on a daily basis as we get closer to the album coming out, and that whole sense of self-doubt. Because someone put it like success is giving us, there's this, probably a self-help quote or something that people will know, but success is allowing yourself the room for failure. And it's scary because if you don't try, you genuinely don't fail. And it's being busy is a lot easier than taking that time out and really being, I guess, mindful and conscious of, right, I'm going to try this. If it fails, so be it. And nearly every day I don't know. I think those feelings of feeling like an imposter, or you, especially with social media. I don't know, is it the same for you? Do you follow people who are very successful at what you're doing? I don't know, because in music, certainly you see these people and they just look so much more together. They look like they've got all the answers, and they're all, I feel like almost like they're all friends. All the people, I'm like, oh, I really like that person, I like that person. And you're like, wait a minute, they're all talking to each other. And you're like, it's a party, and you're not even in the party. You're just like down the road listening to it, sort of crying yourself to sleep in a sleeping bag.
I think the thing about that is the people I find on social media who I end up following are the people who actually are really, really good at what they do, but they never really talk about it that way. I think the people who are moderately good at what they do like to tell you how good they are at what they do, but the people that are really talented just don't. They accept that it is what it is, and they share a bit more and a little bit more kind of, all encompassing. Whereas the ones that I avoid are the ones that with a little bit of a success or a little bit of talent, who then spend the rest of the time telling you all about that little bit of talent they've got, and that's a bit wearing.
Yeah.
I don't really tend to follow other event managers.
Probably quite a niche.
Yeah, it's quite. I mean, it's weird. The only sort of like social media I follow is there's something called the Event Managers blog, which is on Facebook, but it's quite clearly American, and it just speaks a different language to how we do events here. So I don't, but I think in terms of sort of like, for want of a better description, pop stars that I follow on social media, I've ended up in a kind of furrow of music of really unpopular people that I stand in a room going, why aren't they massive? But maybe they're not, because they don't play that populist game.
Now I've really wrestled with that one, because I would. There's a lot of people who share this sentiment as well. I know, but that. So I'm not going to say anything particularly groundbreaking, but you want, especially being a bit older, we grew up with a time of where your artists, you couldn't get to them, and there was mystery, and it was beyond arm's length. You weren't even getting close, and yet now you're just expected to, in order to remain relevant, you're just showing, you're kind of laundering your dirty washing, as it were. And I've seen people try not to do that and not to play that game. And they've struggled just as much by not getting anywhere as if you're doing it, but you're having the crisis of conscience of actually having to partake. And I think it's certainly, there's something to be said for playing a character, or you exhibit a certain amount of yourself, but you want to always keep something sacred, I guess. But it is a real wrestling match. I'm totally with you, because ultimately as well, you make the music to go, here I am, this is me, this is everything I've had to say. I've said it. It's committed to this recording, this vinyl, and I'm really proud of that. But then everyone, like even, I know PRs, and they'll be like, great, so you still need to be telling people about yourself and the journey and what that song means. And what do we have against mystery?
I don't know. I can remember some friends of mine who will remain nameless. So we're probably talking late 80s, early 90s. Birmingham band got signed, and they got whisked off to LA to record their second album. And there's a track on it. It's called something like "Million Miles Away Girl," or one of those sort of like cliched sort of like rock titles. And it was their first album, so they hadn't had that press training and whatever, and a journalist said, so this song "Million Miles Away Girl," what's it about? And the lead singer went, well, I don't know, words just rhymed, didn't they? And the bollocking they got off the label was like, no, you're in LA, your girlfriend is back in the UK, you miss her, blah blah, but build this whole backstory about it. And he's like, but the words just rhymed. And
it's an odd one, because there's vacuous pop has its place. It doesn't have to, like, I mean, listen, like the Black Eyed Peas or all these bands, they're literally writing phonetically.
Yeah.
It's just like, great, boo boo gaga, just sounds great, fine.
Well, look, I mean, I'll stand up in front of anybody and say that Mandy by Barry Manilow is one of the greatest pop songs ever written. And he's hit the ground running because he's put a name in it. So straight away he's going to sell enough copies to anybody who knows anybody called Amanda or Mandy or whatever. But you can look at it and say, oh, it's cheesy and corny. It's a brilliant song. It's just a brilliant song.
That's a great book. I think we're getting close to this idea, I think, of success as well, like how to grade something. And I think you do that with all of our respective jobs as well. It's like, how can you rate anything that you're doing? I mean, there's obviously financial return when you're dealing with business, but I think in music, I've trying to recalibrate that rather than just go, that's a rubbish song or anything artistic, because it's, I would bring a certain set of subjective values to that maybe that, and it's, you have to kind of understand the demographics that the song was written for, and it's a point I'm trying to learn, is how successful is the song in accomplishing what I believe it's aimed to be. And so, okay, for instance, I might dislike Ed Sheeran, let's say, but to take a song that he's written and apply like that criteria, it's like, well, what's he trying to do? Okay, he's trying to write a current pop song that's hooky, that gets people dancing and gets radio play. I mean, it's pretty obvious. And was he successful? Yes, he was. You know, it's not about do I like it. That's not the function of the piece. Whereas, again, that's maybe just to bring it back and make it all about me. Otherwise, I'm doing a terrible job of self-promotion here, and I'd have to question what I'm even doing here, to be honest, quite frankly. So, with Whitetail Falls, album released 29th of May. That's a Friday, by the way. I thought, it kind of had to move me, and I didn't feel like there were choruses where I didn't want the melody to override necessarily what I was saying, and I'd have to think really carefully about it because it mattered. Everything on the track mattered, and I really wanted to get a point across. And for me, I felt when I finished it, that's successful. And then the crippling, agonizing self-doubt seeps in regardless.
For the purposes of the podcast, Irwin did wink to camera when he mentioned the album name. So just I want to put that in now because it was a beautiful moment. But I liken that a little bit too, because there's nothing wrong with the Ed Sheeran approach. If that's what he's wanting to aim to achieve, then that's absolutely fine. And he largely hits the money. He hits the ground running on that stuff all the time. Mm-hmm. I would liken that to, say, going back a few years to something like the first Damien Rice album. Mm-hmm. And that was not an album that was designed to, to sell gazillion copies. That was a very personal album with very personal songs, beautifully recorded in a very specific way. Really kind of keep the door open on those kind of very open, slightly, in a room acoustic recordings. Yeah, and to me, that's the two halves of that coin. So you can go the Damien route, and it's all about the songs, and it's stripped back, and it's bare, and it's about a vibe, or it's the very, very, very managed Ed Sheeran route, both of which are fine. There's not a problem. I think the issue comes when you try to do both, because you can't do both. And I think for Ed Sheeran to claim that he'd poured his heart and soul into some of those songs, to me would not feel right. And it's clearly obvious with something like the Damien Rice album that's not that. Yes, okay, it sold very well, but that was never the intention of the project to start off with.
You have a feeling Damien Rice would be probably one of the most surprised people that it had been as successful commercially as it was. Yes.
Yeah. So I think you'd probably... I certainly get what you're saying there in terms of that. Which brings me to another question about the album. I feel I should wink at the camera as well. So have you been working with anybody else, or is it all about you with the album? Has it all just been you, or has there been some collab going on?
Much as I would love to say yes. That wouldn't be true. I think part of it as well was nerves, and I was never the techie one in the Hoosiers, and so I had no idea how to record, and you can hear that throughout the album. And I would set myself, I guess, as well as a knee-jerk reaction, not knee-jerk, a considered reaction to how everything in co-writes, it gets mapped, it gets locked to the grid because it has to for the sake of appealing to radio. And on this, I would have my loose keeping of my general sense of time kind of remain, and I gave myself like 3 takes to play every part. And so there are it feels alive is one way of putting it. But I didn't know how to actually make a record. So I met someone called Erland Cooper, who is having a real moment at the moment with his post-classical kind of ambient soundtracks, and he's just under his own name, Erlen Cooper, and he's been getting a lot of Six Music love, and he's written for a lot of people, and he was in another band called The Magnetic North, if anyone knows of that. But he really helped exec produce the record, and it was his idea to use my really scrappy demos that I would assume, great, he's going to help me shine it all up. And instead he was like, his point was, no, we get some strings and a harpist in. I didn't know how to arrange for any of that, so that was a learning curve. As well as I pulled a lot of favours. I got a really good mate on bass to play a couple of tracks, good mate on drums to do a bit of programming. So it was collaborative where it needed to be, but I was keen to see how my restrictions as playing and singing and recording could kind of bring out, I don't know, something, just something. And I'm a very restricted player in terms of talent, and I was trying to own that.
The demos that are on Spotify at the moment that I was listening to this morning, are they basically what's on the album but embellished?
So on that's been released so far, there's a few singles. There's 3 singles out at the moment, and there are a couple of just live recordings that I just wanted to kind of add and recorded in a couple of hours for the sake of to be honest, to make up on an EP, and I thought that would kind of sit quite nicely because there's a remix, and I was like, oh, that's going to be all too polished, and so I dirtied it up with a filthy couple of demos and a mic, just one mic, and it was raining, so they're called Rainy Day Shed Sessions. I was in a shed. Made sense. It was a session. What do you want?
Yeah. No.
But no, the rest of the album, I mean, it sort of progresses, and I sort of figured out where to stick a mic by the end of it. And you can sort of hear a slight evolutionary curve on it.
Though, to be fair, there's no right or wrong place to stick a microphone. There is no...
just different.
Just there isn't right or wrong, so, it is what it is. But,
True say.
Yes. It would be remiss of us not to talk a little bit about the Hoosiers.
Of course.
But and I feel I'm going to steal Jason's thunder here. Because
you go for it, mate.
Okay, is that all right?
Yeah.
Apparently, you were voted worst band ever by Enemy.
Oh wow! When I was thinking, okay, they're going to ask some real obvious question like who's Ray? Are you still worried about him? But I got the kick in the goolies question, the real one, not the.
Had you not winked at the camera, you probably would have.
That'll teach me. And let's not forget. Everyone's forgotten. But when we were given the worst band of the year award, 2007, we did ask to go and collect the award. Actually, and we had a speech written, and we'd announce ourselves at gigs as just letting everyone know that they've paid money to come and see the worst band. We don't know if it's of the world or just UK, but we played each night like it was the world.
Like it was the world.
Yeah, did our best. But yeah, they wouldn't let us go and collect the award.
Wow.
That's shocking, actually.
Oh, isn't it?
Really, because if you're gonna dish it out, you really should be able to take it back as well, shouldn't you? So
yeah. And to be honest, I mean, it's not the award you'd choose when you're starting out in your career, but an award's an award.
I don't know. There's a really famous New York Dolls advert that was in Rolling Stone or Cream or something like that. It's a 4-page advert, and it's 2 half pages, and the top says, voted the world's worst band, and in the same poll they were also voted the world's best band, so they put both of them on the advert. So you're in good company, I think.
Yeah, well, in a way there is something to be said for not being too vanilla, and I think we had a little bee in a bonnet, and our bonnet in particular, not just any bonnet, it was ours. We owned that bonnet with a bee in it, and we thought we just didn't want to be ignored. So I guess that was the point of, even if you annoy people, even if you really push it one way and you become Marmite, which is like Marmite, but slightly different, even more Marmite than Marmite. Everyone knows Marmite, don't you? Jeez, I need to put my teeth back in.
But I mean, the reason why I'd got it written down is because I wouldn't have asked that question of anybody who hadn't got who hadn't won that award or hadn't clearly got a sense of humour.
Yeah,
I mean it's quite it's quite evident. I'm chatting to you for the last sort of like 20 minutes, but actually, sort of like if you watch the videos and you see, some of the interviews that you've done on YouTube, obviously, you clearly are quite comfortable in taking the mickey out of yourself, really, and the band. And then, and that comment led me then down to the Edinburgh Fringe thing that you did, which seemed to be like not just taking the mickey out of yourself, but the entire sort of like fame recording industry kind of thing. I mean, what was it called? Self-help yourself famous.
It was indeed. Good research.
Oh, but yeah, I'm like a professional journalist these days.
Yeah. Yes. So, I mean, I think with the Hoosiers wise, myself and Al, genuinely, we've been mates since school, and so that's kind of what you tend to do is have a bit of a laugh. But we were very serious about the music, so we appreciate sometimes maybe got lost a little in translation where people thought it was all a bit of a joke to us. But I mean, making any music, it's a lot of work goes into that process and writing for those albums. And we are still very much together and operating, and we're starting to write for some new records. But we were, the fun was always the promo and interviews side as well, because it was so grueling, and if I'm honest, we genuinely quite enjoy it, which is because we just make each other laugh in it, and we'll make the opportunity of just talking to other people and just having fun with that because the work has already sort of been done. That's committed to record. But then we kind of had last year we've been toying with this notion of putting together a comedy musical, and sort of loosely based on our experiences. And it came from a conversation I had with Jo Wiley, Clang, about 12 years ago, where I said, "How do you handle being famous?" She goes, "I don't." I said, "There should be a handbook written about it, shouldn't there?" She went, "Yeah." And that's when it hit me. And eventually that, over a decade later, took form on an Edinburgh Fringe stage. And it's our alter egos we play called Felix and the Scooter Men is the name of our comedy musical project. And we play fictionalized versions of ourselves. And yet kind of we wanted that idea of shining a torch on the industry, really, and how it affects relationships and mental health as well, because it takes a toll, and it's an unnatural state of being. Just any idea of being famous or feeling like you are other to the person next to you, that's just a bizarre place to find yourself. And just to leave you on this one, we actually got our best review we've ever had in NME. Crazy, the lengths you've got to go to. Got a rave review, in fact. It was brilliant.
Wow.
Was it worth it? No, not really.
I was just going to say, I think that what you've just described there, I think that's really healthy from a mental well-being perspective, and being slightly serious for a moment. I think to be able to do something like that, because as much as it's got a comedy element to it, there's also something slightly, there's a serious message in the background there as well. I think it's a really healthy thing to do. Because you're right. How do you cope with a lifestyle where you could be on stage at a festival and have 30, 40, 50,000 people screaming at you, and then walk off stage thinking that, great, well, I've got to get some petrol, and I said I'd pick up some baby food on the way home, or whatever it might be. And it's such a difficult thing to kind of get your head around. It's
not like there is more suffering going on in the world than our poor fated celebrities. But, it's an interesting one because I guess they can't complain about it necessarily, but their life isn't their own. At the same time, they're signing up for it. And the crazy thing is that everyone wants to be where they are. Apparently. I mean, it's funny the older you get where it seems like an unappealing side effect a little bit more. Although, give it its dues, fame can be very seductive. And even in the show we wrote, it is a drug, and it's it's one way as well to gauge success. Going back to that, it's like, oh wow, people, because we've played our fair share of gigs to no one, but then to actually have people and they're singing along, that's crazy. That's how it starts. You get hooked.
Yeah, I've only done the first half of that equation.
Yeah, me too.
Loads of gigs to no one at all.
Yeah. I got heckled in Grimethorpe, which is still my...
That could be a great album title.
It would be a great album title, wouldn't it? It's in there. It's like if I ever went out as a solo act, I'd want to go out as Hardy Perennial. That's always been the one I've thought about for that.
That's good. What would your get-up be? Have you thought any further on it?
I don't know, because how do you work plant pots into some form of stage outfit?
Well, I don't know if Guns N' Roses could have
Gabriel.
Buckethead or something. You can do this.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. You're right.
There's a way.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's cool.
We'll brainstorm it.
Yeah.
Further, I think definitely. But I think our worst heckle actually on this subject, and it's we played Dublin Castle in Camden. This was when we were still at university. It was myself and Al and another couple of guys. I think we were called Templeton Peck or something.
Oh, good name.
Ooh, good name.
Yeah, thanks. And we just finished our set. It was terrible. There was about 5 people there, and someone at the back yelled out, "Mediocre." It just hung in the air, and I think that's the most. It's still now we'll just call each other mediocre. It's like because it still has weight. It still gets you.
Yeah.
You see, given that I used to play in like punky rock and roll bands, we were just too loud, too hard, and too fast to ever get any heckling.
That is bulletproof armour, isn't it, as far as playing live
Although
goes?
I did once play to the National Front by accident, which was utterly terrifying.
I'm terrified to ask any questions.
There was a pub in Birmingham that was called the Ship Ashore, which is ridiculous given how far we are away from any water. And it was on stilts as well, just in case global warming got to the stage where we needed a pub on stilts.
Okay, it's setting the scene for a lot of conspiracy theories.
And it was... it looked like an office block on stilts. It was just like a big square concrete building, and the gigs used to be on the top floor, and there were 3 floors up, and so we'd loaded in. Obviously, there's no lift, so we'd had to carry everything up, 3 flights of stairs, and we sound checked, and the owner of the place went, "Oh, you can go downstairs. The middle floor bar's open." So we went downstairs to get a pint while we were waiting for the massive crowds of about 15 people to turn up, and walked into a National Front meeting, which was terrifying. So we quickly ordered our pints and ran back upstairs. And, bearing in mind, this would have been about 1990. So we were a proper Guns N' Roses, back-combed hair, eyeliner wearing kind of thing. Yeah. And upstairs had no stage either. We were playing on the floor with just monitors separating us from the audience. So as soon as we start playing, and fortunately we were the support act, they heard the noise and they all came upstairs. Didn't pay, just passed through. And we knew who was going to stop skinheads. And then they stood the other side of the monitor, just mouthing your shit at us through every single song.
I mean, in a way, that's probably one of your best sort of critical appraisals you could have.
Yeah.
I mean, if they were into it, then you've got to really ask yourself some searching questions.
Yeah, and our 40-minute set lasted about 25 minutes because we played it so fast. And then, we always had a policy back then of whichever band had kindly given us a support slot, we would stay and watch them and clap them and everything. I was at home at 9:15 that night.
Yeah. It's the right thing to do.
It begs the question, though, what do the National Front listen to?
Do they have... It's probably some dark subgenre of something.
Or some kind of techno Wagner or something.
I don't think it's... I don't think it's got any acoustic guitars in it.
No.
Very little, very light on panpipes.
No.
Be my guess.
No, it's not Damien Rice-esque, is it?
No, I think the arrangements are probably limited.
Yeah.
Rudimental, in fact.
Yes. Just the hint of a jackboot stomping in the background is all you really want.
3 chords and a lot of lies.
Yes, yeah. We probably ought to deviate away from that topic because we could end up in a lot
threatens to weigh us down.
I know, in a lot of
Probably
trouble.
about time I plugged something, isn't it?
Well, you've not plugged anything for at least 6 minutes, so we ought to go back to that.
I'm surprised. I'm still surprised you haven't asked about guitars or something. I was like a mental checklist of any I've played.
No. There's one question coming up about guitars, but to be honest, the podcast is more about the people. We're although it's it's linked to the guitar show. Neither of us are really that nerdy about guitars, and there are plenty of places you can go to get that fix if that's the fix you're looking for. And being of a certain age, the two of us are far more interested in the music and the stories behind the music. But I'm pleased you've been kept on edge for this long.
Yes.
That's great that you've been in a state of unease. We ought to move on to our quick fire questions, didn't we?
Yes, we should.
And as tradition dictates, I introduce the topic. So I go, and we have five quick fire questions for you to answer. It's our lockdown special questions. And then also have to point out that I don't know what any of these questions are because Jason's got them written down. And so I've done that every episode so far, so I'll do it this one as well. I'll pass over to you, Jason.
Okay, so the first question, relatively simple question. What one thing in your career are you most proud of?
Ooh, one thing. Oh man, I thought they were going to be quick fire. So do I need to give a quick answer?
Well, no. I mean, Glenn Matlock took about 3/4 of an hour, so you're fine. You're fine.
That makes me feel better. One thing that I'm most proud of. I feel like usually I give this answer when someone says, "What's the best song you've written?" or something, and I'll go, "I haven't written it yet." I want to say this because I'm like, I like the idea that you've got to be looking forward, and that can be hard when you have the most successful thing I've done is the first album, but I don't like to stay there. I don't like to fixate on it myself. I don't think that's healthy for creativity. So it is always the next thing.
Is it your new album? Is that coming out soon?
I'm as you've got me in a corner, I'll go with that. This new album because honestly, I still feel like there's no way I know how to make a record, and yet the record is made, and I'm going to be holding it in my hands soon, and that's staggering. So if I can do that, anyone can pick up a guitar and go for it.
Brilliant. So next question: which 3 people, dead or alive, would you like to have dinner with?
I would go. One of them would be Toby Smith, who is our late great producer of the first 2 Hoosiers albums, as well as he really developed the band, and he was the original synth father in Jamiroquai, and he wrote a lot of their hits as well. And he is just one of the most incredible human beings you've ever met, and he's very funny, very rude, at once the most incredible and terrible human. He really,
it's always a skill.
Absolutely, and he's sadly no longer with us, but what a guy. Yeah, he'd definitely be there because he's just the most fun and incredibly unpredictable, and he just doesn't care about what other people think, which is very dangerous, and I find that very challenging, and it's not really quite my style.
It gets easier as you get older.
True. Yeah, you just fewer, can I say, shits?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Given. Great. You notice how I cared about that reaction, though. See, yeah. Okay, that's one. Jeez, the others will be quicker. I'm going to go Little Richard.
Nice.
Why not? Because he's on my mind at the moment, and this is going to be quite a night, actually. And then I'm going to have to tone it down by going with someone like let's go with Reverend Desmond Tutu. Because I feel we need something to temper the other personalities around the dinner table. Was it a dinner table? I don't know.
Yeah. It's the come dine with me question.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the how everyone would sit together, and I think that's a balanced palette of personalities.
Yeah. Excellent. Which piece of gear do you wish you'd never sold?
Oof. Actually, yeah, it'd probably be my gig rig, my first gig rig. It was their like first wave of multi-effect pedal changes, and it just did what it was supposed to. It was good. It was, and then I went high end. I went MIDI, floor controller, just in time for the venues to sort of get smaller, and my guitar techs to like develop really bad backs, things like that. Sorry guys about that. And also, you know, the MIDI cables just break all the time, and the other pedal, it just did what it was supposed to, and you know, it wasn't broke, and yet I fixed it.
Cool. What's the best gig you've ever been to?
Best gig I've ever been to. That's tricky. I've seen Springsteen like five or six times. Maybe I'd say Springsteen at Leeds. I can't even remember the name of the arena, but it had just opened.
Oh, the Leeds Arena.
It's the first direct arena in Leeds. It had just
first
opened.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That was a few years ago.
Yeah. That's right. You guys weren't there.
I saw him on that tour, but not in that venue.
Yeah.
But you were lucky because every other venue on the tour was a stadium.
Yeah, because I did the double. I saw him in Cardiff the night before, I think, and then in Leeds. But yeah, and absolutely, and I've seen him at Wembley, and it was like the worst sound. I was
Coventry
living,
was awful. Coventry sound
really?
was absolutely shocking because it can't be my favourite gig simply because he was amazing.
Yeah,
but the sound was so awful.
And those tickets are not cheap.
They weren't cheap, no.
But that's saying something then. If that happened for you as well, I'm really sorry about it, because seeing him with that band and with great sound in that arena, that First Direct, did you say?
Yeah, First Direct arena, I think, in Leeds. Yeah,
and that was something else.
It's actually it will be First Direct because First Direct are based in Leeds. It's funny because I've been to see Billy Joel a few times. And he very rarely plays stadiums. It's always arenas, and the sound has always been astonishing.
Is that his choice then? Do you think?
Well, I guess so, because he'd be able to sell out
you'd think,
stadiums, no problem. And he would do more dates. So he'll come over, and when he does, he'll add more dates and do. So like when he played last night in Manchester, I think he did 2 or 3 nights on the trot. But he was fantastic, and it's the same sort of thing. Similar artist, similar age, similar pedigree, great bands. Difference being the sound for him was just so good, and and Springsteen not.
So was that kind of like the inspiration for your album, like Nebraska, recorded at home? Was it there?
I think that the fact that he'd done that here, I think I heard the story of how he made Nebraska him in a 4-track, making sort of demos for an album that. Did it end up becoming The River, wasn't it? It was simultaneously.
No, they tried to record it twice, I think. Spent about $500,000.
With the full band, that's
With the full band, and then scrapped it and just released the 4 tracks.
Which was like his demos, accidentally.
I mean, clearly, that's not a 4-track Fostex thing with a C90 cassette in it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And did he have any help engineering it even? I wonder.
I can't imagine that. When would it have been? About 77, 78, Nebraska?
Yeah,
and so he'd already done that whole big. I mean, he'd come over and he played Hammersmith Odeon and stuff like that. Yeah. So I kind of imagine that a tech would have brought it to his house and set it all up and basically gone, Bruce, you just press record when you're ready.
Yeah. That's.
I might challenge that, and I tell you the reason why I might challenge that. Is because he has a very sort of blue-collar approach to his work, doesn't he? He gets up every day and he writes. He treats it as a job. And he's had that kind of the blue-collar work ethics always been part of what he does. So to me, he would be somebody who would find out how to do it, who would actually, because of that, instilled in him from his upbringing. So I don't know, I might disagree with that as we don't know and we're guessing.
Yeah, I tell you what, I'm just going to actually just phone him.
Just give him a shout.
Yeah, it's me. Oh, right, you did. Okay. Yeah, actually, it was on an early iPhone. Just an early prototype of GarageBand. Bye.
So the final question. What's the first thing you're going to do post-lockdown?
Oof. I mean, everyone's going to say go to the pub, aren't they, and have a beer, which is obviously what everyone's going to do, including me. But I'm going to have to say something different. I'm just talking you through the thought process.
No, it's fine.
I'll probably just stay in and watch catch up on Netflix, because I figure the bandwidth in my local area will just be through the roof, because there'll be no more demand on it.
You're going to stream on 3 or 4 devices at the same time.
I'm going to go
because
nuts.
you can.
Yeah, watching the same thing.
Same thing on 4 different devices.
Yeah, for no reason whatsoever.
All a nanosecond out with each other.
yeah. That's. I'll have flipped insane in under a minute. I reckon. Or been sucked into a black hole or whatever that'll create.
You'll be disappointed to hear that actually somebody did say it would. I quite fancy when it all finishes, maybe going on a sabbatical and locking myself away. So,
who was that? That's good.
It was Ryan Roxy, actually.
Alice Cooper's
that's
guitarist.
what I'm up against. Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah,
get some me time. Yeah.
Guess yeah.
I think that's a lot of people. I love my family dearly, but I think we are now 8 weeks in, starting to drive.
This is unnatural.
Mad.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got a baby. I've got 2 teenage daughters in the house.
I think you've got it worse. Yeah, I like the nodding. You weren't saying anything, but you're like, I have.
And my life is shitter than yours. Yes. And of course, Jace, you haven't got an album coming out, have you?
I haven't got an album coming out,
and I've not got an album coming out either. Irwin, have you got anything in the?
Well, thanks for asking. As it happens, I thought why not give people something to listen to? So here I've got this album. It's called Age of Entitlement, and yes, it's coming out on Physical Education Recordings on Friday the 29th of May.
Whitetail Falls, what does that mean?
Because I was thinking as it was going to just be my thing of using my name, but then I quite like having something to hide behind, and that idea of there being a little more mystery to it, which obviously this whole podcast is helping to ruin.
Thank you.
But then, cheers.
Listen, the 7 people who are going to listen to this probably would have bought it anyway. So you're fine.
True. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, that makes me feel better. Thanks. And I read it in a book, and it was about the Pacific Northwest, and it's somewhere I'd never been, and I liked that because I didn't have anything to project upon it, and so it can be whatever I wanted it to be, and I liked how the words sounded together. I'm into it.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're about done, aren't we?
We've talked for an hour.
Unbelievable. Wow. Unbelievable.
Time flies.
When you're having fun.
No, when you're asking me questions. That's just like blah, 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 blah.
Well, it's been a pleasure. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thanks.
And,
me too.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I don't know what else to add really. So I've stuttered through that bit. I'll chop that bit out probably. And hopefully, Irwin, we'll see you at the guitar show. We'll send you directions to the right one.
That'd be helpful.
Yeah, we can do that for you. But yeah, if you, I think.
If you
February,
coming
but probably
along
May.
in Feb and playing.
Yeah,
definitely. Oh, to be honest, yeah. I mean, well, let's have a talk about that because I've got family in Birmingham as well. That would be that'd be well worth it. I'd be up for that.
In which case, you heard it here first, folks. Irwin will be at the next guitar show, nailed on.
Legally binding.
Yes, and if lockdown carries on any more than another 4 or 5 weeks, we might have to have you on the podcast again.
Yeah, that's true. You're just going to do a big loop, right?
Yeah. There's only 6 people who'll talk to us. So
5 now.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for that. That's yes. Yeah. Okay. Our performance is clearly mediocre.
Very good.
Thank you. Right. Thanks a lot, Owen. We will talk to you soon. Take care.
Right.
Thanks very much, chaps.
Bye.
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 And we are back. And for those of you that weren't listening closely, Irwin's got an album coming out.
Has he?
I think, yeah, he's got an album. In fact, it's out, isn't it? Was it out last week?
Yeah, it came out last week, yeah.
Yeah. So I hope it's going well, Irwin. And if you're listening, and I hope you are listening, let us know how it's going. I've certainly liked the tracks I've listened to. Yeah, very, very good. But what a lovely chap. What a really great interview. Very, very funny chap as well.
Yeah, he was
really
funny.
good sense of it. I found myself laughing loads when I did the edit for it. So we wish him all the best.
We do. I mean, yeah, I listened back to it and laughed a lot as well, which is really weird when I'm laughing at a conversation that I'm involved in.
I do that. Isn't that odd? Isn't that a bit strange?
It is odd. It's really weird, especially as you know. Well, as you're saying, I was talking to a mate of mine, Paul, the tattooist, and he's got his own podcast now, and we were chatting about it, and he said that he laughs as well when he's editing it. So we're not alone in the fact that we laugh at ourselves.
No, I honestly laugh out loud when I'm editing, and and then you get people, because obviously a lot of the time I'll edit in headphones, and so it's just a random spontaneous. I mean, the number of times the door opens because people think I'm in some kind of pain or I'm having a seizure, and it's just But then again, yeah. That bit when we did Bumblefoot and I was singing Rocky Horror at the top of my voice with my headphones on was caused a bit of a problem in our house as well. So we're perhaps stay clear of all that. Hey, you've got an update, haven't you? You've got an update on Mick and Keith.
Yes. So according to Wikipedia, on the recording of "Can You Hear Me Knocking," Keith is panned hard right and Mick is panned hard left. So I am Malcolm and Mick.
And I am Keith and Angus. And we were just talking about that. And whilst headline items look like I've got the better deal out of that, I'm not so sure. I think actually you might have got the... Yeah, is it possible for somebody to be cooler than Keith? And I don't know. I think Mick was really cool.
I think Mick was really cool. He's a phenomenal player.
Yes.
And I just win. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
I called shotgun straight away.
Yeah. The quiet man's done it. You know, the reluctant podcasters just trumped me twice.
Yeah, there you go.
No.
I just need to know what side Izzy Stradlin's on now, which I think is left, and I've got the whole thing wrapped up.
You've got the set. You've got the set. Oh, right. Okay. I should have put some more thought into this. I've been found out this morning, but there we are. So we've got another one coming next week. Another interview that we recorded previously a few weeks ago, and we're speaking next week to
Simon from the brand new Heavies.
And I'd be right in saying Simon is very much an individual.
Yeah, I really enjoyed chatting to him. We had a few issues with connection. I mean, we recorded it so long ago. I think it was when the entire world jumped onto Zoom and started recording at home and stuff. So broadband was an issue. But he was great. I really enjoyed talking to him. He said he's going to do the guitar show next year, which is great. And as you've just heard, we've really pressured Irwin into doing the guitar show next year as well.
Yes. I'd just like Irwin to come on stage and, I don't know, recite anything or read bit from something or just do anything. I can just listen to him all day. He's just he's got that presence about him. But I'm looking forward to hearing Simon play. So that'll be good. But we're managing to do quite well. I think that's 3 of the interviews that we've done so far for the podcast are all confirmed for the show next year.
Yes, because there's Glenn as well.
There's Glenn's as well, yeah. We ought to hope that Earl's still here and Earl will pop down as well. That'd be quite nice.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, because those two together are just, they're hilarious. In fact, have you seen any of their stuff on YouTube that they've been doing?
No.
Because they've done a couple of broadcasts, haven't they, the two of them in the out of the lounge, the room where we interviewed them.
Oh, I'd like to think that we were partly responsible for that.
I'd like to think, we sowed the seed for that particular thing, but they're definitely going down this slight YouTube personality thing. If you've not seen it, you ought to have a look. It does look... There's a wonderful photo of the two of them sat on the front step with masks on, advertising.
I'll check that out.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you haven't listened back to some of the other interviews, those two, well, they're all good actually, but the one with Glenn, the one with Earl, Those two are very much worth listening to back to back if you can, because the episodes aren't that long. If you can take yourself for a long walk and listen to the two of those episodes back to back, and very amusing, very amusing. Right, well, we're about done for this week, so everybody stay safe, and we'll be back with you with Simon from the Brand New Heavies next week, and that's me done. Unless you've got anything you want to chip in, Malcolm.
No, who'd have thought Malcolm would be a cool name? But no,
Mrs. Young, obviously, at some point.
Well, yeah, and Mr. Young, possibly. No, nothing else to add other than have a listen to a bit of Simon's podcast that'll follow this, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, take care. Coming next time on 9 to 42.
My first electric guitar I bought from this place called Exchange and Mark, where you could exchange stuff and everything, like this place. And they had this guitar up on the wall. It was a K. K was this make of guitars that were really cheap and accessible. I don't know if you remember them, and it was an SG with a whammy bar with a big spring, and if you lifted the whammy bar up, the spring would fly out.
Thanks for listening to 9 to 42, the podcast from the team at the Guitar Show UK. If you've enjoyed the show, then please remember to hit the subscribe button and share with other like-minded souls. For more information about 9 to 42, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram at the Guitar Show UK. This has been an A Short Stories production.